Greetings, beloveds. Welcome, and peace be with you. I'm Reverend Mitzi, and I'm so very glad you're here. Something within you is calling you to watch. I'm so very grateful that you answered that divine call. Welcome to Unity of Tempe online. So today we are revisiting the Pilgrim story to explore attitudes of gratitude, a spiritual necessity. Our song by our beloved Zephyrin will be at the end today to anchor our message. So religion in 17th century England was dictated by the monarch. And when the monarch changed religion, people were expected to do the same. And if they didn't, they could lose their heads. Quite literally, lose their heads. Yes, they could. I don't know that's funny, Ron Pierre. My camera guy is laughing. You know what? We're just going to go with this and not stop and start again. You get to see a little bit of what it's like to do this every Sunday from home. Sometimes we just get into a giggle mood and oh my goodness, if I could put together a season of outtakes, that would be funny. But anyways, back to our whole message for today. So, a group of people that we refer to collectively as the Pilgrims, even though that name was not given to them until 1840, felt that the only way that they could have religious freedom was to separate from the Church of England. And at first, some of these separatists did this by moving to Holland. And while Holland provided more religious freedom for them, it was not welcoming work-wise for them. So in 1620, wanting freedom to worship in their own way, they began to move to America. And these separatists, along with members of the Church of England who were immigrating for economic reasons. And that's very important to remember because often we think that the Pilgrims and those who came over did so only for religious freedom. But many came for many other reasons, primarily for prosperity and a new way of life. Well, those people and crew members and people who were contracted to work in the New World, they embarked on the voyage across the big pond. Now, of course, they weren't the first settlers from England. 13 years earlier, 104 men had landed in Virginia at a place they named Jamestown. And certainly we know countless others were here before any Europeans arrived. And that, of course, includes indigenous peoples. Well, the Mayflower set sail from Southampton on August the 5th, 1620. She was forced to stop, however, at Dartmouth because her companion ship, the Speedwell, was taking on water. After fixing the leak, the Mayflower and the Speedwell set sail again on August 22nd. But just 300 miles into the trip, both ships were forced to return, this time to Plymouth, because of yet another leak in the Speedwell. The Speedwell was then abandoned along with 20 passengers, and they just returned home. They'd had enough. They're like, I've tried to do this, but I'm done now. The remaining passengers joined the Mayflower, which set sail on September 6th, for her successful 66-day voyage across the Atlantic. On board were 102 passengers, including 3 pregnant women and a crew of 25 or 30 people. And the Mayflower arrived on November 11th, a month later than planned. Life after arrival, it was difficult. The men constructed buildings and lived on shore, while the women stayed on ship, confined to damp, crowded quarters for another 4 months. Disease spread quickly on board under such conditions. The first winter, it was brutal. Almost half of those who'd made the trip to the New World died. And by the end of the following year, there were only 4 women left alive to care for the colony's 50 men and children. You might wonder, under these dire circumstances, how and why they bothered with a time of Thanksgiving. And of course it wasn't called Thanksgiving yet, but why did they bother with this time of giving thanks and praise? Well, that's because they knew the power behind practicing gratitude. So let's review it for ourselves. For centuries, philosophers and spiritual teachers have extolled the benefits of gratitude. A modern scientific study divided several hundred people into 3 groups where they kept daily diaries. The first group recorded events that occurred during the day. The second group recorded their unpleasant experiences. And the third group made a list of all the things for which they were grateful. Those who made the gratitude list reported higher levels of enthusiasm, determination, optimism, and energy, less depression and stress, and they were more likely to help others, they exercised more regularly, and they made more progress toward their goals. Why is this? Well, this is because people who feel grateful are more likely to feel loved, and that encourages a positive cycle of reciprocal kindness. That's why we need the proper attitudes. So let's look at our first gratitude attitude. Be flexible. The Mayflower's voyage was a survival test on an epic scale. Kind of like 2020, which is coincidentally the 400th anniversary of the Mayflower's sailing. Passengers made tremendous sacrifices, selling possessions, leaving jobs, and most of all, leaving loved ones behind. And the sailing wasn't all smooth. They had to return twice before eventually setting sail successfully. They had to make adjustments and be flexible to achieve their goal. And sometimes we have to be flexible as we strive to reach our goals and dreams. Maybe even evaluate if the dream is placed there by God or by an ego-driven need. When the Speedwell was unable to continue her journey across the Atlantic, those passengers who were having doubts saw it as an opportunity to jump ship. If 2020 is teaching us anything, it's to be more flexible. The Pilgrims took a bold challenge by leaving their home to seek a new life, to seek spiritual freedom, to seek more prosperity. And that leads us to gratitude attitude number 2. Be strong in your faith. The Pilgrims' perseverance, courage, and faith still inspire us today. They took action to seek a new life for themselves. And there are times in our lives when we will be called to take action for things that we believe in. Times where we'll be called to challenge the status quo. Times where when the opportunity to make a stand for something will be before us. Times where our spiritual conviction will be put to the test to see if it's sufficient to handle the demands of the moment. Times where we will have an opportunity to make a positive difference by venturing into brave new worlds and uncharted territory. That, beloveds, is our mission of spiritual growth on earth. That brings us to gratitude attitude number 3. Prepare. None of us can avoid life's challenges. What we can do, though, is prepare ourselves spiritually to be on a firm foundation for when difficulties arise. And the key to that is to keep growing spiritually. Keep praying. Keep connecting with your divine source. Keep watching these messages to get tools for your journey. Keep reading spiritual books. Keep joining us on our prayer calls and on our Facebook Live on Sunday. Keep doing things that nurture you spiritually. Create a foundation of spiritual practices that will sustain you, not only through easy sailing, but also during rough seas, especially during rough seas. Now, because of the delay caused by the leaky speedwell, the Mayflower had to cross the Atlantic at the height of storm season. Many passengers were so seasick they could scarcely stand up. And halfway across the ocean, amid a terrifying storm, the worst trial of the Mayflower's voyage occurred when one of the ship's main beams cracked and buckled. And this would have been a disaster had it not have been for the enormous iron screw one of the passengers from Holland had been guided to bring along, because the screw was used to secure the damaged beam for the rest of the journey. Now, speculations abound as to whether the passenger brought the screw as part of a printing press or for carpentry. I like to think it was because of a divine idea that told him he had to take this screw. He was going to be the hero of the day and he didn't know why. But one thing is absolutely certain. Without the screw, the Mayflower would have been, well, screwed. And if the ship had been lost at sea, some of you might not even be here today. And that brings us to gratitude attitude number 4. Give thanks even in hard times. Despite all the hardships and the grief, the Pilgrims took time to give thanks to God. They remembered how important it is to adopt an attitude of gratitude no matter the circumstances. Kind of like 2020. No denying that this year it might be easier to muster up a sentiment of resentment than an attitude of gratitude. But imagine this for a moment. What if you woke up today with only the things you thanked God for yesterday? Imagine that. What would you be thanking God for then? Beloveds, our lives are a mix of joy, of sadness, of beginnings and endings, and new beginnings and more endings and more new beginnings. And it's easy to give thanks in happy times. Oh yes, it's easy to give thanks in happy times. We're so happy, we're so grateful. We love to do that. But when we're able to give thanks even in the storm, or as in the case of 2020, the pandemic, that's where we know our foundation is strong. The gift of life, it comes with hardships and challenges and pain. And our job is to remember God is as ever present and available during our most fearful, angry, sad times as our happiest, most in tune times. Here's your chance, says Spirit, to strengthen your gratitude, attitudes, and your faith. This week, as we prepare to honor a very different Thanksgiving, I invite you to say a prayer with me. We'll say it 3 times. The first time will be just to get familiar with the words. The second time will be to breathe it in to yourself. And the third time will be to give it up with all praise. Thank you, God, for giving me another day to appreciate and praise all that I take for granted. Thank you, God, that I am awake, alive, and blessed. Thank you, God, for all the blessings in my life, big and small, and for more that are on the way. Breathe into this prayer now. Thank you, God, for giving me another day to appreciate and praise all that I take for granted. Thank you, God, that I am awake, alive, and blessed. Thank you, God, for all the blessings in my life, big and small, and for more that are on the way. And now, with all praise, thank you, God, for giving me another day to appreciate and praise all that I take for granted. Thank you, God, that I am awake, alive, and blessed. Thank you, God, for all the blessings in my life, big and small, and for more that are on the way. Now, beloveds, I hope you enjoyed saying that together. Let us take our financial blessings to our heart as we share them. There is no financial blessing that is too big or too small. Your financial blessings are so very, very important to your Unity of Tempe home. So we thank you in advance. And we see each and every person that is giving absolutely showered with blessings, financial blessings of prosperity, shimmering you prosperous, shimmering you prosperous. For as we give, we receive. As we give, we receive. As we give, we receive. And if you're wondering where you can give, there is information on our website, unityoftempe.org. So now, please join me in the prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. All is well, and we are grateful. And now, beloveds, I invite you to stay tuned for an encore presentation of Zephyr's beautiful gratitude song. Beloveds, I love you, and I am so very, very grateful for you. May all of our thanksgivings be filled with giving and thanks. Thanks and giving. I'll see you next week, or on our Thursday Zoom call, or on our Facebook Live. Enjoy this wonderful song from Zephyr.
Silent places empty spaces deep inside of every form, open faces, see a world with closing doors. I fill it up with hope, gratitude and hope, a multitude of hope, gratitude and hope. Living shapes us into who and what we are, and if we have courage, we can let go of the bar. Empty hands hold what is near and what is far, and fill it up with hope, gratitude and hope, a multitude of hope, gratitude and hope. Struggles take us to the edge of what we know, so they can move us to the place where we can grow. Fragile faces open to forevermore, and fill it up with hope, gratitude and hope, oh, a multitude of hope, gratitude and hope. Our spirit raises us up to get up when we fall. We can choose to see the oneness of it all. In the silence, we can hear that mighty call. You know it's full of hope, gratitude and hope, a multitude of